Hi, hello, and welcome to the Finding Peace series brought to you by Ablossi Center for Sacred Living. My name is Ablossi. I'll be your oracle today. And it's a little janky, y'all, figuring things out. I don't even like the name y'all, but we're gonna go ahead and get in here. The universe summons me. We're not doing tea tonight. We're gonna do, I call it a cherry smoothie, but it's a pink smoothie. All the tropical stuff, banana, mango, peaches, coconut, and then some cherries, stevia, and diatomaceous earth. I'm doing a cleanse right now. So normally we have tea, but tonight it's a smoothie because Mama was gonna go to bed. She was watching some late night TV, about to get ready for bed. Like work off, brain off, just give it a minute and then go make a video. Okay, so the Finding Peace series is unclear and undefined. I'm just following orders. I don't entirely know what it is right now. And I'm cold, burr, so I even am bundled up a little bit. Why don't we go ahead and get in here? Yeah, Mama loves white and lapis. Okay, a little bit of gold. But when I was growing up, my favorite color was pink, and then when I became a Budunsi, it changed to purple. Finding peace. Right now, today, we're talking about forgiveness. So when we talk about forgiveness, one thing you should understand is that the first step of forgiveness is forgiving yourself. I always say, forgive yourself for who you had to be to get to who you are or who you've grown to be. You have to forgive yourself for almost everything you've done to get to this place in time. And if you're a bigger and better person, you would never do those things or be that person to get to where you are again. Life is for learning and living and laughing and loving, okay? So forgiveness is something you give yourself, okay? Forgiveness is something you give yourself. When people think about forgiving other people, and it comes up in spiritual matters even, it's really a pardon. You're pardoning another person. You're not, I call it putting a note in their file or attaching that BS to their karma. If you know what you're doing, you can do it. But forgiveness is when you let go for yourself. Forgiveness is something you give yourself because it allows you to quit what's called the re-trauma, the re-trigger, the re-wounding, okay? So it lowers, not always prevents that cycle. Like when there's a conflict or something, there's a list you should go down in the healing or recovery. There's a list you might go down in the healing or recovery, and it's different for different folks. Me, normally, I say to the person, like, delete that text. If you're obsessive, delete the links on the phone book or the Facebook or whatever people do nowadays. Whatever the children, the social people, whatever that looks like, quit the re-triggering, the Chinese water torture. Mama's fluent in torture. We don't need to talk about that ever. But anything that is a torture device, which is a thought that won't go away. Think about it. This person harmed you. This person hurt you, consciously, unconsciously, intentionally, unintentionally, ignorantly, savagely, however that happened. You perceived a harm, therefore you left that experience with a wound. Well, the wound is where the light shines through. The wound is actually this sacred container, the sacred space upon which your healing is happening. And the healing itself is a ritual. Some rituals take 2 hours, some rituals take 2 weeks. Yeah, girl. So it's the space for which you do your work and think about it. You bring in somebody else up into this space to do your work, your forgiving work, your self-love work is ultimately what it is. So the opposite of non-forgiveness is self-love. So forgiveness is the first step back towards wholeness with yourself, because every experience should bring you closer to yourself, because hopefully when we're walking through this world, we can see the God in the other person, right? So again, forgiveness is something you give yourself. Pardoning is something you do for other people. You do not need to pardon. And just because you forgive doesn't mean you condone, you forget any of those things. Kind of obvious, but let's go ahead and say it, right? Okay. So why do we forgive? Well, because this maladaptive, perfunctory, idiosyncratic, extemporaneous, contemporaneous, minimalistic, reductionist, round robin, mental acrobatics. Isn't that draining your energy, draining your chi, draining your attention? If you had an experience and it wasn't be able to reconcile at the moment that it happened, some of us are cancers. We like to reconcile right away. Some of us it's difficult. We don't like knowing that we've harmed other people. And when we know that we've harmed another person and we feel it, it's hard when we're not able to go and, make amends, whether it's an apology, whether it's an actual amends, whether it's some type of retro-prose, I call it, which is just coming back around to do the same posture and have a different result so they know that you can act differently. Sometimes you need to do a living amends where it's like, that I'll say this sometimes when I mean it, that person that you experienced that with, I killed them, they're dead. It's fun to me, it's scary to other people. So think about it for a moment. Forgiveness is something you give yourself so that you can have clean space to do the work. And the work is always plumbing the depths of your soul and coming back up for light, plumbing the depths of your soul and coming back up. Why do you plumb the depths of your soul? Because where do you find your light? It's at the bottom of your darkness. Yeah, okay, you can be guided by others. You can be guided by external. You can be guided by outside. You can do what everybody else is doing. You know what I call that? Get in the box, be conditioned. But we're also conditioned to forgive quickly or to not carry experiences with us. But what happens when you're empathic? What happens when you're cancer? What happens when you have in your body, in your memory? What happens when you're wounded, when you have a physical injury? What happens when you're deformed, when you're maligned? Okay. What happens when you survive a malicious intent? Okay. Still forgive. Because you don't know who that person is. And come on now, the worst karma is to be that nasty person for others. It happens. Sometimes we are the negative entity, negative energy, and we're just we're just a cause in somebody else's ascension. We're just serving our purpose in the universe. And we could do the same exact thing with another person and they would be thanking us. And then we're doing this thing with this person that the conflict is with and they are condemning us, right? So forgiveness is something you give yourself. And also when you begin the forgiveness work, you should start with yourself. Even if some external party, person, place, or thing harmed you, you still start with the self-forgiveness. Forgive yourself for who you had to be to experience that. Forgive yourself for carrying that vibration that attracted it to you. Forgive yourself for being unaware, unawake, unconnected to spirit who could guide you, who could work with you, and sometimes understanding that the wounding was necessary and the wounding was intentional by the goddess. She sent that pain, sent that trauma to you for some reason. See, when you're out of this, question on your breath, whatever that is, that little, I call it spitting, marinating in venom. It's even worse when you spit it, but when you're marinating in venom, that's when you have the ruminating thoughts or whatever. I've left all the caca. I don't know anymore, but in my teachings and my healings, get out of the energy, get out of the space, get out of the mind frame, get out of yourself. Those are the 4 steps. And you fill in the dots in many different ways, but it's always the same 4. Okay. Leave the place where the triggering happens, because you need autonomy for intent and control. And that's what forgiveness is as well. When something happened to you that's outside of your control, oftentimes the initial, it usually looks like anger, but anger is fear. Fear is that you're going to be hurt. And then it's compounded because you don't have surety that you're not able to not be hurt again. And sometimes again and again and again and again and again. So anger is always fear of being hurt again. If somebody wronged you and you feel the need to seek out vengeance, that's ego. That's another topic, okay? But even when we're ruminating in the pain, ruminating in the experience, it's like, well, what are your needs moving forward? That experience taught you something, probably hurt your feelings. Okay, well, great. Hey, honey, first of all, Miss Madam, ain't nobody responsible how you choose to feel. Ain't nobody responsible how you choose to think. Believe it or not, it takes a while for us to get to that. But if the person's in an ongoing, mutually beneficial, nourishing relationship, they might want to contribute to what's alive in you, right? They may want to make sure you get your needs met. They may want to not impede you getting your needs met. Okay. So that's also why we forgive. Because it takes it away from outside, it takes them away from external, and it brings it back here. Never will I ever suggest that you be in a situation where you don't have autonomy, friendliness, and control. If you are not empowered to think for yourself, to feel for yourself, and to feel safe. But it's even worse when you're carrying that wound with you, because then you're attracting more of it, and that feeling of non-safety can compound. That's when things get dire. And we start to think about things that are unnatural, like suicide. I won't continue. But also, like, besides being into spiritualism, I'm also into BDSM. I don't mean it in a way where I'm out there, engaging all the time. But I understand very deeply bondage, domination, sadomasochism, and I understand the pain threshold and the death threshold and the fear threshold. I understand how to use it as a sacred container and to use it as a tool for illumination and healing. Really, what I'm saying is I have seen when people are consistently trying to take out, even myself. Pain for me helps me remember traumas from the past because I have a tendency to dissociate. So the forgiveness is also self-acceptance. It really is truly, genuinely what it is. It's just self-acceptance. That happened to me, whether I was able to help it or not. And I've got to walk away from it and carry some of it so that I can heal from it. Okay, that's got to be okay. We've got to find a way to make it okay. They're not okay, the person who wounded me. That's not okay what the situation was. But it is okay that the situation happened because I'm walking with something. You're walking with your own self-worth and value. You're walking with yourself intact. You're walking away with an identity, which is authentic awareness of who you are and why you're here in this world. And hopefully you're walking away back onto your spirit, karma, life path, destiny, your life path. All right? So think about it differently. Let's just get back to the BDSM. Well, why needs a person seek out pain or cutting or any of those things? Because they're numbing, they're soothing. So why does a person need to numb, need to soothe, need to reach from external sources to feed what's alive inside? Because maybe they don't feel worthy of forgiveness, or maybe not forgiving the other person, place, or thing is some type of ammunition, some type of model, means, mechanisms of strength. So what is strength? Strength is the ongoing stance and posture of being strong. What does it mean to be strong? Strength or strong is when you embrace that not always can you be strong. Let me repeat. It's when you embrace the fact that sometimes there's weaknesses and you're really going through this experience. It's not happening to you. So it doesn't matter if you fall, if you have a moment of weakness, because you will get back up again and it will make you stronger. It will increase your strength. So this is the second part of forgiveness, because the first thing is just to leave. Sometimes you're not leaving whatever, you're leaving that conversation in your mind. So forgiveness is the hardest part of healing, because it's the first step and it's the hardest step, and oftentimes it's the easiest to avoid. It's like acceptance is the last of the 5 cycles or stages of grief. Forgiveness is the first, but it oftentimes happens the last, because it actually, you do it again and again and again and again. Okay, I forgive the situation, that person was just crazy, oh, but I was an idiot. Okay, come back around the next day. Okay, well, I gotta forgive myself because, life is for learning. I gotta grow through what I go through. So hey, here I is, now I know. right? And then you go through it again because there are circumstances beyond your control. And sometimes you need to inventory those circumstances so that you cannot feel bound to them, and there's always the choice of going to the altar, going to the goddess, going to the river and praying. Okay, but again, the goddess is always going to want you to be dutiful to her, but also for you to have your strength about you. Okay. So really, forgiveness is always about forgiving yourself for being in that place at that time, forgiving yourself for being idiotic, stupid enough to get into it, forgiving yourself for not knowing how to navigate through it initially when you were in active conflict, active trauma, forgiving yourself for still carrying it along with you, forgiving yourself for even sustaining a wound from such an experience. Forgiving makes it okay, and it doesn't make it okay externally. The circumstances may be unacceptable, but forgiveness makes it okay for you to have the space to do the work. Forgiveness gives you the permission to have your own experience away from what mother, daddy, teacher, preacher, religious books, science books, history books, whatever the little cubicle box matrix is. It gives you permission to get up out of whatever is not serving you and to look at what is serving you in the face for what it is, how it is, not give no labels, not acquiesce, not maladaptive, idiosyncratic, perfunctory, mislabel, misjudge, misperceive, no minimalism, reductionism. It's what it is. It's the root of that experience. Okay. Now, oftentimes you give yourself the vehicle of forgiveness to navigate through. Sometimes the conflict's not over. So forgive this other person eventually because they may be toxic or they may be wounded. Hurt people. So forgiveness is really self-forgiveness because what you're doing when you forgive another person, you're pardoning them. It's not forgiveness. Forgiveness is something you give yourself. What you give other people is a pardon. Now, let's talk about some of the finer nuances. We'll go ahead and have a sip of this smoothie. Usually it's sweeter. Okay. So, forgiveness might seem like this amorphic, amalgamous, atypical blob because sometimes we disassociate. Sometimes there's an injury like a TBI, or sometimes the pain comes out in waves. Sometimes we'll forgive this A action, B action, C action on a Monday, and by the time Thursday rolls around, we've discovered M action, N action, elemental P action, and so it's like this constant forgiveness. At that point, I would just advise that you pray it away. If you ain't gonna pray it away and it keeps coming to wound you, you better have a strong intention. I'm just gonna say it. Okay, so forgiveness is not easy, and sometimes forgiveness is ongoing, but forgiveness, it gives you strength that cannot be taken. It gives you, because you're secure in the self, to know that you can't control the external world. You can only control yourself. You can only control how you think about things, how you feel about things, how you respond to things, and how you file them away in your mind. And you can pray you can control how much you pray. That's it. That's all. All this other stuff. Well, he did this because, and she did this because she's this kind of person. Maybe that's true. Maybe it isn't. Does it really matter? What's alive in you? What are you needing? What are you feeling? What are you thinking? What's the rest for? Can you give that to your goddess? Is she gonna come bless you with that shit? So that's what it is, forgiveness. Forgiveness is something you give yourself because forgiveness for others is a pardon. And normally forgiveness is the first, the middle, and the last step of any healing process because, again, we have to forgive ourselves for who we had to be to get to where we are today, knowing that we wouldn't be that person still. Does that make sense? Also, forgiveness is because we found ourselves in that situation, and oftentimes we have to continually forgive because more will be revealed as you navigate, negotiate, show up to that experience with yourself and participate and be present with your own feelings, with your own heart, with your own memory. That's where the continual forgiveness comes. There's some of us who walk through this world with shame and guilt. I'm going to come back and talk around this about another time. So shame and guilt, but let's talk about it for a minute. Shame is when you feel bad for who you are versus guilt when you feel bad for what you did. So forgiveness, giving it to others, or English, pardoning others. Let's talk about it. There's that CPTSD, complex trauma. We'll leave that over there. I can talk about it by experience, but not now. When somebody is contrite, when they show, oh, I harmed you, I'm sorry, that really, truly, genuinely was not my intention. Or yes, I was the kind of person in the kind of mind frame with the kind of living that harmed you, and now I'm different. I'm in a different mind frame. I'm contrite for my behavior. I've thought deeply about it, reflected deeply about it for a long, long time, and I would not, if the opportunity or the circumstances presented themselves again the same kind of way, I would not behave or make the same choices I did that day. That's different. That's somebody who's worthy of forgiveness. But again, you forgive yourself, you pardon others. So what does that look like? Saying, yeah, okay, I'm an emotional adult. What is an emotional adult? An emotional adult is responsible for how they feel and how they think. They don't make somebody else responsible for how they. Example, I am neurodivergent. It's not really Asperger's or autism, but something very close to that. I can be bombarded by external. Does that make sense? And so a lot of times the boundaries are very strong around me, and it's really easy to get repelled. Okay, so when I first learned about this part in myself, I was running around all the time to apologize. Hey, did I disrespect you? I owe you some respect. I'm so sorry, girl. Here's the thing you might not know about me. Maybe next time we can smooth it out, because I don't want to be like that. So forgiveness becomes hard in relationships because of this. We have an expectation that the person will change. And see, we don't actually, in reality, love a person for how they love us back in return. We love a person for what it gives us. To know that you're a loving person, to know that you're a kind person, to know that you're a genuinely authentic person inside. And then show up to wounding, to harming. There's a little another bridge of forgiveness, because sometimes we're blaming ourselves, or I want to use some of these words that are coming through. When we show up to co-sign somebody else's BS, and then the fifth or sixth time it's happened, and we're really like, oh my gosh, wow, all a bunch of expletives just came through. I'm the mofo who's up in this with this food trying to do. I'm the one. I need to, first of all, spank myself. I need to apologize to myself. I need to forgive myself. I need to send this mofo away. Once the harm is over, once the damage is like done, immediately start working on forgiveness. Because what you're doing is you're carrying around venom that's not for you. Okay. In addition, the more spiritual you become, the more weaponized your feelings can be. Okay. So sitting in a feeling, marinating in a feeling, it needs to serve a purpose. I don't want to say, no, don't do it. I want to say, don't do it often and don't do it for too long. Because in a real higher spiritual world, what happens is, first of all, it's frequency, energy, vibration. So you attract, you repel, number one. Number two, the goal is harmony. And so harmony doesn't mean the absence of conflict. Harmony means you're able to make it beautiful all the same. I prefer the symphony and the orchestra because I'm bougie like that. Trust me, mama loves some entertainment, culture entertainment, truly. But every Sunday night, there's this drum circle under the bridge, and there's like trash can lids and like your makeshift drums and like, you know, the Home Depot's buckets, and it's beautiful. Now, me, Mama, loves to go to the theater and look at the Japanese taiko drummers. You know, that ticket's like $55. So what is that in there? Because me, I'm like, well, it has to be this way. You know, if Ablossi is going to go and spend the evening somewhere being entertained, it must be this way. That's a standard. That's pickiness. That's expectations. So forgiveness gets tricky because there's expectations about how the person is going to act, who the person's going to be. Instead of just Ablossi being open-minded and going to the drum circle underneath the bridge and having the makeshift drums there. Because the people are just as beautiful. The experience is just as grand. One is, it's going to be like this. And the other one is going to be like, well, I have my propensities, I have my sensibilities, but I can be open-minded, at least for an hour or two. Could it be that? Who do you think's holding on more? So, okay, again, forgiveness is something you give yourself. You forgive for yourself, not for what the other person gets. And just because you forgive somebody doesn't mean you need to deal with them again, doesn't mean you need to hold space with them again, doesn't mean you condone the toxicity, the trauma, the BS, the whatever. It just means you ain't carrying that no more. Okay, so it's been an honor and pleasure to serve you. Thank you for allowing me the privilege to do so. Again, today we had a pink smoothie. It's a gorgeous recipe. It's always just tropical fruits and cherries and some sweetener. Today I added in some diatomaceous earth because I'm going through a cleanse. So there's like 5 things in here. We have bananas, peaches, mangoes, black cherries, coconut milk, diatomaceous earth, and stevia. Okay, so no tea. Today it's a smoothie. Anyways, I love you, I honor you, I praise you, I thank you. It's been an honor and a pleasure to serve you. Thank you for allowing me the privilege and the pleasure to do so. These live videos don't always have show notes. So I'm a sit down at the computer between 11 and 1, a couple of days a week kind of person, and do emails and all those things. So that's like my schedule. Like usually the next morning when I'm sitting down and getting on the phone and checking the emails, that's normally when I'll add in the show notes. But there is a flash sale going on right now. It's probably not relevant to this channel because we don't do tarot here. But some of you just want coaching. So if you book a live session that we don't need to do cards, okay, as long as it's a live session. Because if I ain't doing a live session and I don't have your astrology information in front of me, I ain't doing no. It's going to be cards. Okay, I think everything's out there. You got forgiveness, you got my morning schedule, and you got my smoothie recipe. You're welcome. Talk to you soon. Bye.